organization says, listen, world, listen, United States of America, you've got to protect us from terrorists.
Exactly.
We're a terrorist organization, and we need you to protect us from other terrorists. and the world turns around and goes, absolutely, we'll help you do that. Did they help Gaddafi do that? You know, did America run and help, Gaddafi or any other organization on paper to do that? Of course they wouldn't.
No. Oh, my God. It's a mess. I mean, oh, my God. I mean...
mess is the human, craziness.
Yeah.
Listen to what Conor McDowry, he's one of the greatest scholars that ever lived. He said, Hebrew was never spoken by the Aramaic people of Syria, the so-called Jews, or by the people of other countries.
Yeah.
It was used by the ancient Irish priesthood of Iessa, precisely as Latin is used today by the Roman Church to impress its multitude. Yeah.
Interesting.
So we've got many, many, many interesting questions here. I want to get to a couple more quotes from Thompson. He says here, Palestine never developed, now listen to this very carefully, Palestine never developed a political power of any great international significance. It was always so divided by its many small regions that it never developed a common history except when it was controlled by some power from outside, such as Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. So in other words, it was an outpost of major cultures. High culture, as expressed in art, architecture, literature, and pageant, hardly existed. Most of what has survived is either foreign in origins or derivative of Phoenicia on the Syrian coast. Now the Phoenicians, as we said before, Henrik, were Irish, were Celtic. Sometimes they were Celtic, several times removed.
Yeah.
They were Irish several times removed, but they were Celtic nonetheless. They inhabited Iran, which is exactly the same word as the old name for Ireland, Iran, or Eran. The sacred land, or the land of the sacred people, meaning the land that the sacred people were using for various, outposts and ports and educational purposes. There was a worldwide college of the Druids at that time. So settlements grew up. Places like Caesarea are built over ancient Celtic sites. Places like Petra, that they always tell you so mysterious they can never work out who built it. It's very easy to work out who built it. It's the civilized, educated ones from the ancient times that the Etruscans and the Phoenicians and the Syrians and the Iranians all had married in with and merged with, and who absolutely named their countries after the people of the West. Did you know the word Syria literally means people of the West, the land of the Western ones?
Oh, really? Interesting.
That's what the word means.
Ah, interesting.
Now we have...
Michael, before we... what do you say if we do a little break and do our contest? We're about to have...
People call in, so it can interrupt the flow of the show. Why don't we do the contest in the last, 10 minutes?
Sure. No problem.
We're not constantly interrupted, because this content is very important to get across. We have such precious time.
I agree. Let's do that, of course. Please continue.
So we'll definitely do the contest.
Hello, Michael. Are you there?
Yeah. Did you want to take a break, or no? Should we just go on?
No, let's go on, and let's do it at the end. So it will be great. Yeah, please continue.
It'll be good now. So just keep an eye on it. We'll do it the last 10 or 11 minutes before the end.
Yeah.
Now here's Professor Thompson himself, and of course this man wrote a book called The Mythic Past: Biblical Archaeology and the Myth of Israel. And this in this one book, you can save you reading volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of lies. Now, Professor Thompson says that Jerusalem's history, he's talking about Jerusalem specifically now, Jerusalem's history remains impossible to write. Although the Egyptian Amarna letters, which give us correspondence between Palestine's petty princes and kings and the Egyptian pharaoh of the late 14th and early 18th centuries, tells us much about the town of Urasalim, there's a place called Urasalim, and about its patron, we know nothing about this town from archaeology. We are not even certain where it was located, though we have every reason to believe that it was at the place they're saying is Jerusalem. But they've never discovered it. So the forensic evidence, so to speak, isn't there. He also goes on to say, there could not have been a kingdom for any kind of Saul or David to be king of, simply because there was not enough people. Not only did a state of Judah not yet exist, we have no evidence of there having been any political force anywhere in Palestine that was large enough or developed enough to have been capable of unifying the many economies and regions of this land. And at this time, Palestine was far less unified than it had been for more than 1,000 years. The Jerusalem of the 10th century can hardly be spoken of historically. If it exists at all, and years of excavations have found no trace of a 10th century town, it was still centuries from having the capacity of challenging any of the dozen or more powerful autonomous towns of Palestine.
Yeah.
So those people who have been kind of questioning in their minds about where is the evidence, why does the Bible not go into all the minutiae that would be needed if they were a true civilization? Because when you go into studying the Hittites or the Babylonians and the Sumerian scrolls, all you find is endless tablets about selling sheep and the law of the time and the building of walls and how the commerce was done and all this unbelievable minutiae, which you would expect from a thriving civilization.
Yeah.
You know, all the little imbroglios and who's being taken to court today. You see, and what's going on and what the latest news is and how the war is going.
Yeah, of course.
And in the Bible, none of this is there. It's just a bunch of scattered disinformation that when you take a piece of it and try to go and find some historical evidence, none is to be discovered. He goes on to say, here's a Professor J. Perry, in his book called The Growth of Civilization, he says, there are no signs of Paleolithic man in the parts of Mesopotamia where civilization can be first detected, the region being generally young. So let me read that one again for people who are in a delirium. This one sentence can wake them up. There are no signs of Paleolithic man. This is Stone Age man. Where all Stone Age it's all meant to have begun, right?
Yeah.
There are no signs of Paleolithic man in the parts of Mesopotamia, and that's a big area, where civilization can be first detected. The region being generally young. Now, the same scholars will tell you that Ireland is the oldest civilization known to man, hands down, no questions asked.
Yeah.
So then what have we been buying into? He says the Bible knows nothing, or nearly nothing, of most of the great transforming events of Palestine's history. Of historical causes, it knows only one, Palestine's ancient deity, Yahweh. It knows nearly nothing of the great droughts that changed the course of Palestine's world for centuries, and it is equally ignorant of the region's great historical battles at Megiddo, Kadesh, and Lachish. The Bible tells us nothing directly of 400 years of Egyptian presence, nor can it take any role in teaching us anything about the wasteful competition for the Jezreel area in the early Iron Age, or about the forced sectarianization of nomads along Palestinian southern bank. So here it's the reverse of what I'm saying. All those things that the archaeologists and the biblical and historical scholars know that did happen, because they've learned it from the records of other local people, the Bible never mentions it. So the things that the Bible mentions, nobody can find. And the things that they know happen in the area, the Bible never mentions. But people are going to believe it.
That's
right? So it's the same thing as you turn on the television today, CNN or ABC News. You know?
Yeah.
People believe a moon landing happened. That's great.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That was from Professor Thompson. He goes on to say, one of the most striking and wonderful things about an historian like Josephus, and this is so important, Henrik. He says, one of the most important things about a historian like Josephus, and he has the word historian in parentheses, is that he knows almost nothing about the past, that we ourselves do not already know from other sources. Now look at this. In an account he gives of a supposed event of 2 centuries earlier, and his words confirms that something we can read in other works. It is only because he has copied it or paraphrased it. Josephus has been well described as a person that you wouldn't buy a used car from.
Ouch.
I mean, it's further up the totem pole than these kinds of men.
Yeah.
And he's telling you that now that because we have so much documentation, that anything that you find in Josephus, we have the sources of where he took it from. In other words, he's a plagiarist. In other words, his history isn't worth 2 cents. In other words, this was a guy with a nice big bank balance that was set behind a desk, and he was fed information that is now called history.
When do you think that this was written?
This was written either after the time, or it was written during the time that they say that these people existed, but that these were people who were agents of people who were giving them the history to write.
Yeah.
And I've always maintained that the Bible is either 2 things. It is the careful biography of the true Atonist people that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But they used it like a screenplay, just in the same way that they say that Shakespeare's plays conceal many messages about alchemy and mysticism and certain bizarre characters who existed, you see.
Yeah.
So I believe the Bible is the same way. I do believe that some of the characters of the Bible existed.
Yeah.
And I do even believe that some of the events that took place existed. But they are carefully transmogrified accounts to talk about a different dramatis personae that we have been addressing in these shows, but not the one that people think about when they're thinking of Paul and Saul and Peter, you see.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are astrological archetypes.
Exactly.
And a lot of them are characters well dressed for the 18th dynasty pharaohs and other great dignitaries that are sacred to the cult of Aton.
Yeah.
It's their holy book. And it talks about the events, their Yahweh, their burning bush.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is their particular iconography.
Yeah.
But these people are megalomaniacs. They have insisted that Jewish people today and Christian people buy into this personal biography as a religion. And you know, as you see on the talk that I did in L.A., people will do it because our forefathers only lived for a few years.
Yeah.
And we haven't got too much brains. There's not too many enlightened people around. So of course we will accept this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
But the point being that these individuals, as many, and not just Josephus, but many others, they're already stealing histories from other people. So it's like everybody at school comparing each other's works. And then what happens is, down through time, the universities and the scholars put before us, because it looks old to us.
Yeah.
So they're saying, listen, this is aged with time. You accept this grape juice as the finest wine, all right? Because we've kept it buried down here for years. Doesn't mean it's wine, but they're going to tell everyone, nobody's ever tasted any wine, so they're going to believe that this grape juice is the real thing.
Yeah.
And of course, it's under pain of death. You don't even have a choice.
No.
Now it says here, he says that they did not hesitate to change their sources and reconstruct the past whenever there were gaps in their knowledge, or indeed in any manner that they saw fit. As we have grown more aware of such typical characteristics, the history of Israel has grown less and less acceptable. Historical scholarship's indolent habit of offering paraphrases of ancient historians and correcting them only when evidence proves them wrong will no longer do. So the mess of history that we have got is people taking original histories of other peoples and other theocracies and other cults, adapting it. There's a term called adaptation. You see it on the end of any movie, and often at the beginning of a movie they'll say, this movie is adapted, but it doesn't bear any resemblance to any characters living or dead. Well, when you pick up a Bible, and when you listen to any of the bunk coming down from any priestly source, it is such adaptation. Look up the word in the dictionary. Go to dictionary.com and look up the word adaptation. And also look up the term Reverend Robert Taylor, or any of the people that I deal with on my website who did know this, who were from within the church, and who desperately tried to tell people the true history. Alvin Boyd Kuhn, Godfrey Higgins, Gerald Massey, the list goes on, Schwala de Lubitsch. Anyone who tried to say, listen, we, as archaeologists, as people who've been out in the field, we sense that something's wrong, let us tell you the true story. Well, like the Reverend Taylor, they end up in the jail, locked up, literally locked up. Their liberty taken away from them because they're not going to preach astro-theological sermons. They're not going to talk about ancient cults. We don't want to know about ancient cults. We don't want to hear you talking about how the symbols of Judaism are the symbols of Freemasonry. You must be out of your mind. We're amazed that you even worked out the fact that we've been having a historical deception. That worries us enough. And now we're certainly not going to allow you to tell the true story. We say in the Bible that biblical patriarchs lived for 800 years, Henrik. Okay, this is a lifespan of 800 years, and this has been in the Bible. You accept it. It doesn't matter if you've never met anybody that has lived 800 years. You're going to accept what we've just said. It doesn't matter if you've done archaeological research to find out that there was never enough water or fresh water, or no types of oases could have existed in Iran during the times when they say that Ur and Chaldea and all of these places existed. There's no civilizations could have flourished in exactly the places that they tell you that Abraham came from. But that doesn't matter. We're telling you to believe it, and you will believe it. That's all it